I've always been fascinated by abandoned houses. There's something about them that draws me in. Maybe it's the mystery of their past, or the sense of decay and neglect that surrounds them. One day, I was driving through the countryside when I saw an abandoned house that I had never seen before. It was in a state of complete disrepair. The windows were boarded up, the paint was peeling, and the roof was sagging. I pulled over to the side of the road and got out of my car. I walked up to the house and stood there for a moment, just looking at it. I could feel a strange energy coming from it. I decided to go inside. I found a loose board on one of the windows and pried it open. I climbed through the window and found myself in a dusty, cobweb-filled room. I started to explore the house. I went from room to room, taking in the decay and the neglect. I could see that the house had once been a beautiful home, but now it was a shell of its former self. I came to a room at the end of the hallway. The door was closed, but I could hear a noise coming from inside. I slowly opened the door and peered inside. The room was dark, but I could see a figure standing in the corner. The figure was facing away from me, and I couldn't see its face. I took a step into the room. "Hello?" I said. The figure didn't turn around. I took another step closer. "Is anyone there?" I said. The figure slowly turned around. I could see that it was a woman. She was wearing a long white dress, and her hair was flowing down her back. The woman smiled at me. She had a beautiful smile, but there was something unsettling about it. "Welcome," she said. "I've been waiting for you." I didn't know what to say. I was frozen with fear. "Don't be afraid," the woman said. "I'm not going to hurt you." "Who are you?" I asked. "My name is Emily," the woman said. "I used to live in this house." "What happened to you?" I asked. "I died here," Emily said. "I was murdered." I felt a chill run down my spine. "But why?" I asked. "Who would want to murder you?" "My husband," Emily said. "He was a jealous man. He thought I was cheating on him, but I wasn't. He killed me in a fit of rage." "I'm so sorry," I said. "Don't be sorry for me," Emily said. "Be sorry for yourself. You're in danger." "What do you mean?" I asked. "My husband is still here," Emily said. "He's trapped in this house with me. He's not happy that you're here. He wants you to leave." I didn't know what to say. I was terrified. "You have to get out of here," Emily said. "Now!" I turned and ran out of the room. I ran down the hallway and out of the house. I didn't look back. I ran to my car and got in. I started the engine and drove away as fast as I could. I didn't look back until I was safely out of the area. I'm still not sure what to believe about what happened that day. Was Emily really a ghost? Or was she just a figment of my imagination? I don't know. But one thing is for sure. I'll never go back to that abandoned house again. It's been a year since I had my encounter with Emily. I'm still shaken up by what happened, but I'm trying to move on with my life. I've been seeing a therapist to help me deal with the trauma. I'm also taking medication to help me sleep at night.
Next story.
I stood with my friends in front of the abandoned house. It was a dilapidated structure, its windows boarded up and its paint peeling. I was amazed it hadn't collapsed yet. "Guys, let's go," I said, tugging on Abby's sleeve. "No way!" Brianna exclaimed. "Stop being a baby and come with us." The others crept up the wooden stairs, and I followed reluctantly. Caitlin turned the doorknob and opened the door, releasing a cloud of dust. We coughed and sputtered as we entered the doorway. The interior was terrifying. The wallpaper was torn and peeling, pictures hung crooked on the walls, and some lay shattered on the floor. "Come on," Sam urged, and the group headed upstairs. The old stairs creaked beneath our weight. They seemed centuries old, and I worried they might give way. We reached the top and stopped. Caitlin peered down the hallway. "This way," she said, gesturing to the room on the left. We entered the dark, desolate room. Everything was silent except for the sound of our heavy breathing. My heart pounded in my chest. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the room, and we froze in our tracks. I stood frozen in fear, feeling a hand on my shoulder. I spun around, but no one was there. My heart pounded even faster now, and I could hear the others' breathing quicken. I turned to the side and caught a glimpse of something on the wall. It was blood. The last thing I wanted to see in here. It was written in shaky letters that I could barely decipher. When I could finally make out what it said, I shrieked. It read, "Watch your back." I quickly turned around, giving myself whiplash. Luckily, nothing was behind me. I broke into a run and heard the footsteps of my friends following me. I sprinted down the stairs and missed a step, causing me to go tumbling. "Jordan, are you okay?" Brianna shouted from the top of the stairs. Yeah, I lied. My arm was in excruciating pain, but that was the least of my worries. I was frightened to death. I looked up and noticed that I was right in front of the bathroom door. A shattered mirror hung on the wall. I never knew what it was about them, but I've had a fear of mirrors since I was a child. I winced in pain as I grabbed my arm and looked back up at the mirror. I could hear my friends running down the stairs. My eyes were fixed on the mirror when suddenly I let out a shriek. "What's wrong?" Abby asked as she reached the bottom. There was a face in the mirror. I stared at it before forcing myself to look away. It's all in my imagination. Of course, when I looked up, it was gone. "Nothing," I muttered under my breath. Sam grabbed my arm as she helped me to my feet. "We should go," she said, as if reading my mind. "Yeah," I said as I started towards the door. I was at the back of the group like usual. Suddenly, I felt a cool metal object placed against my head. I turned around, half expecting to see my friend. I was wrong. Behind me was a man dressed from head to toe in black. His face was masked by a hoodie and a pair of sunglasses. In his hand was a gun pressed against my temples. I froze in fear, willing myself to run, but it was as if my feet were glued to the ground. A grin crept across the man's face as he slowly placed his hand on the trigger. I looked at him, and for an instant his face changed. He smiled, and I saw razor-sharp teeth form along with bloodshot eyes. I turned and saw all my friends were gone. My eyes widened as I quickly ducked from the aim of the gun and twisted his hand back. The gun dropped to the floor with a loud smack, and I kicked it away. I watched it bounce along the walls, and I ran for the door, but was surprised to see the man wasn't following. He stood there, staring at me with a smirk. I was confused, but I couldn't care less as I bolted out the door. Expecting to feel fresh air, I found myself in another room. I grabbed my hair in frustration as I turned around but saw the door had disappeared. How is this happening? I said to myself. I began hyperventilating as I realized I was trapped. The room suddenly became brighter, and what I saw made my eyes widen. All my friends were hanging from the ceiling, tied tightly by their feet. Their limp bodies hung there, lifeless. I stared in horror, and my eyes trailed to the corner of the room. I couldn't make out who it was, but a person stood in the corner with his back turned to me. He clutched a knife in his hand and raised it up as he turned around. It was the man from before. His face was still twisted into a demonic grin. He lunged at me with the knife, but I managed to dodge him. I backed away against the wall, my heart pounding in my chest. "Why are you doing this?" I cried. The man laughed. "Because it's fun," he said. "And because you deserve it." He lunged at me again, but this time I was ready for him. I grabbed a chair that was nearby and threw it at him. It hit him in the chest and knocked him back. I ran for the door, but it was still gone. I was trapped. The man got back to his feet and smiled at me. "Nowhere to run," he said. He raised the knife again, and I closed my eyes. I knew this was the end. But then I heard a scream. It was Abby. I opened my eyes and saw that she had broken free from her bonds. She was running towards the man, a chair leg in her hand. She swung the chair leg at the man's head, knocking him to the ground. I ran over to her, and we both kicked him in the stomach. The man dropped the knife and curled up in a ball. Abby and I continued to kick him until he was unconscious. We then ran to the window and smashed it with a chair. We climbed out the window and onto the roof. We ran across the roof and jumped to the ground. We ran until we couldn't run anymore. We collapsed on the ground, exhausted but alive.